Breakfast. We're just about to speak to the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak. Susie's just got in touch to say the budget had nothing for pensioners, can't wait until 2024 for the 19p tax rate. We are struggling as well as others, says Susie.
Many of you getting in touch, and you continue to do now as you listen to the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, who's on the line. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
Now, no one's going to pretend this is an easy job that you had to do yesterday. However, looking at all the front pages, no one seems very happy. So let's start with your taxation strategy. How is it possible to justify planning to cut income tax at some point in the future while pressing ahead with increasing national insurance by 1.25 percentage points?
Well, there's lots of things going on, but just to overall view, you asked about the strategy. And I know that number one concern people have right now is the cost of living, and that's what families are struggling with, which is why yesterday we announced a tax plan which delivers the biggest net cut to personal taxes in a quarter of a century. There are three bits of it that I would highlight before we get into the questions you have. The first is a cut on fuel duty worth 5p a litre. That came in 6 p.m. last night. The second is an increase to the national insurance thresholds, which is a very generous tax cut in the national insurance system, and 30 million workers will benefit from that, and a typical worker benefiting by about £330. And then the third bit, as you said, is for the first time in 16 years, the plan to cut income tax, ensuring people keep more of what they earn. Now, as you said, thank you for acknowledging it's not the easiest job in the world. I can't. I've always been honest with people that it's difficult for me to solve every problem or to fully make the challenges go away. But what we can do is put more money in people's pockets, make a difference where we can. That's what yesterday's tax plan delivers, and it will help hardworking British families weather some of the challenges ahead.
Okay, you'll understand on your first point, 5p off fuel duty, that takes the price back to what it was 2 weeks ago. I understand that there are global forces working here, but it's a hugely trumpeted policy, 5p, but the actual net result of it is not that big.
Well, it was something that was called for actually by a wide range of campaigners, and of course, fuel prices are volatile, and I can't control global oil factors, but it does represent the biggest cut to fuel duty on the main rates that we've seen. It's the first cut to fuel duty in a decade. So I think it's a reasonably extraordinary measure in of its own self, and it gives people a sense that we are trying to make a difference. And as I said, the vast majority of people do rely on their cars. Prices have been going up, and I think it does demonstrate that we are on people's side, and where we can make a difference, we will.
Okay, on the income tax, it's highly unusual for a Chancellor to say he's going to cut income tax, but not for 2 years. Pretty much everyone says you have the headroom, about £20 billion worth of headroom. So why not just deliver the tax cut now, not in a couple of years?
So just a couple of things. I think that, first of all, it's not that unusual to give a direction of travel for tax policy. We've done that previously on corporation tax, for example. Actually, a previous Chancellor on income tax gave a year's notice for when it would come in, which is actually quite typical for tax changes because they work on an annual cycle. So it's not that unusual to give people a sense of direction of travel of where we're heading. And secondly, your question on headroom, just so everyone's clear what we're talking about. We have a set of fiscal rules which ensure that we're not borrowing excessive amounts and that our debt is falling. And people talk about our headroom to those rules. By what amount are we meeting those rules? Actually, what the OBR, the independent forecaster, said yesterday is that the headroom we have is broadly in line with average amounts of headroom that other chancellors have had. And their quote was, relatively small changes in the economic outlook would wipe out, their words, that headroom. And they also said that we're facing a particularly or unusually uncertain environment given Ukraine. So actually, I think the responsible and prudent thing to do is to set out the plan that we've got in place, which is a very significant tax cut this year by national insurance thresholds, ensuring that the first £12,500 you earn, you don't pay a single penny of income tax and national insurance on, fuel duty cut now, and then a tax cut once we've got through this difficult period, inflation is back under control and debt is falling again. So actually, there's it's a plan that does help people today, but also shows that we're continuing to help people over time as the situation improves.
Okay, on the national insurance, yes, the threshold is changing, but still people above that threshold are going to be paying more. They're going to be paying 1.25 percentage points more. Can I just ask about the poorest in society? As a chancellor, I mean, you can tell me what your priorities are, but in this kind of situation, with all sorts of global factors going on, inflation predicted to go to 8%, your priorities presumably are growth of the economy and protecting the poorest. Now, the Resolution Foundation analysis overnight says a lack of support for the poorest people is going to mean that 1.3 million more people are going to go into absolute poverty next year, and that includes 500,000 more children. What comfort can you give them today?
I'm not sure if you can hear me, Aasmah, because I was trying to say something previously. Can you hear me or not?
I can hear you now, yes.
Oh, right, great. Because I just want to address your point on national insurance. And sorry, I don't know whether you didn't hear me or what was going on. But it's important for people to recognise that as a result of the policy on raising the thresholds, that is particularly well targeted at those on low and middle incomes. And what it means actually is that 70% of workers will be better off and pay less tax, even accounting for the new levy that you mentioned. So I think it's really important that people understand that. So 70% of workers will pay less tax even after accounting for that new levy. And I think that is a really important point to land. So actually they'll be better off than if there was no levy as a result of the policy that we put in place yesterday. Now, with regard to those who are on particularly low incomes, they were our priority, and that's why in October, in my autumn budget, I started to focus our tax cutting agenda on them. We improved the generosity of how universal credit works substantially, delivering a tax cut for around 2 million people. It's cost £2 billion. And what that meant, together with all the other changes we're making to the national living wage and things I announced yesterday, means, for example, a single mother with 2 children renting, working full-time on the national living wage, will be £1,600 a year better off. And I think that does demonstrate that we do want to make sure we help people like that, and I'm confident that we are.
I was going to give you an example, though, because someone has just emailed us to say this. This is Maggie. She says, I work for the NHS. I was a palliative care nurse, but had to resign during the pandemic due to stress. I took a job as a cancer support worker. I was just about managing my finances until recently. I'm so distressed by the budget yesterday. I don't know how I will be able to make ends meet and just feel like crying every day. It feels like MPs can't even imagine what it's like to be on a low wage and certainly don't empathise. Sunak is not doing enough, says Maggie. So she's in tears. She doesn't think you can empathise with her because you don't understand what it's like to be that close to the breadline.
So, I'd say to Maggie, actually, she can judge me by my actions over the past a couple of years. I mean, when we had a pandemic and almost 2 years to the day yesterday, we entered a national lockdown. I also was a chancellor that put in place the furlough scheme to help the country get through it, made sure that we had support for councils, for schools, for businesses, and of course the NHS. And I think she said Maggie was an NHS nurse, and we provided record sums to support the NHS and help them get through the crisis. And it's partly because of all of that and the damage that coronavirus did to our economy that we have had to take some difficult decisions now to correct things going forward.
But she doesn't feel that you are doing that.
Well, particularly for nurses, again, this is tricky when there's particular case studies, and I'm happy for you pass Maggie's details to me. I'd happily get in touch with her and see what it is that we can do to help. But the median salary for an NHS nurse, when I last checked, was about £33,000, and that was a result of something called the Agenda for Change deal that we'd put in place for the last 3 years, which increased nurses' pay quite considerably. So that's the median salary for an NHS nurse is £33,000. Now, obviously, I don't know Maggie's particular details, but I would imagine she is going to benefit from the change to national insurance that we made yesterday. That's going to be £330. I don't know if Maggie drives, but she will also benefit from the fuel duty cut. She will benefit from the income tax cut when it comes as well. So and she didn't have to benefit probably from some things like furlough, which around 10 million people did, probably because if she was working in the NHS, they didn't have to use furlough, but we were pumping tens of billions of pounds into the NHS during coronavirus to help them deal with the pandemic. So that's, those are all the things that we are doing. But as I said, I can't in this job do absolutely everything that everyone wants me to do. It's the toughest part of this job. But where we can make a difference, that's what I will do. And yesterday, we really did demonstrate that we're on the side of hardworking British families and try and help them get through what are going to be some challenging months ahead.
Rishi Sunak, thank you for joining us this morning. He's speaking to us there from a manufacturer in Nottinghamshire. And you can judge that. Judge me by my words. He says we're helping ordinary people. He can empathise with people like Maggie. Let us know what you made of what he just said. Do you think he's doing enough? I suppose is the question. A lot of people have said no, but that was his case for why he is.
Yeah, get in touch with us. And remember, at 9:30 on Times Radio Breakfast, we will have Dominic O'Connell, our business correspondent, and our chief political commentator, Lucy Fisher, answering all your questions, your economic questions, your political questions about the spring statement, now that you have digested what Rishi Sunak, the man himself, has to say. Send them into 87222. Start your message with the word Times. Tweet us at Times Radio or email studio@times.radio.